Iron Islands. The Iron Islands is one of the constituent regions of the Seven Kingdoms. Until Aegon's conquest, it was ruled by the kings of the Iron Islands and then briefly the kings of the Isles and the rivers. The Iron Islands are home to a fierce seafaring people who call themselves the ironborn. While some say the archipelago is named after the abundant iron ore on the islands, the ironmen claim it is instead named after their own unyielding nature. It is often said that every captain is a king aboard his own ship, so the islands are also called the land of 10,000 kings. The Isles are ruled by House Greyjoy from their castle of Pike. Notable houses have included Blacktide, Botley, Drum, Goodbrother, Greyiron, Harlaw, Hoare, Merlin, Stonehouse, Sunderly, Tawny, and Wynch. Bastards of noble origin from the Iron Islands receive the surname Pike. Geography. The Iron Islands is an archipelago in Ironman's Bay, located in the Sunset Sea off the western coast of Westeros. They are roughly west of the Riverlands, northwest of the Westerlands, and south of the North. The main grouping of islands numbers 31, with the 7 major isles being Pike, Great Wyke, Old Wyke, Harlaw, Saltcliffe, Blacktide, and Orkmont. 8 days sail northwest of Great Wyke is a smaller grouping of 13 clustered around the Lonely Light. Some of the Iron Islands are used for sheep grazing or are uninhabited. The islands are ruled from Pike, the seat of House Greyjoy on the island of the same name. The Iron Islands is the smallest of the regions of the Seven Kingdoms. Dorne is the least populous of the Seven Kingdoms according to Doran Martell, but it is unclear if he is also including the Iron Islands in this estimate. The Iron Islands are small, barely fertile rocks, with few safe harbors. The seas around the isles are stormy, frequently wreaking havoc with their considerable force. People. The inhabitants of these harsh isles are known as Ironmen, especially by the rest of Westeros, but they also call themselves the Ironborn. The Ironborn are a seafaring people, and some do not like to be far from the sea. The priests of the drowned god likewise seldom stray far from the sea. The Ironborn are considered independent, fierce, and sometimes cruel. They live in a harsh land and hold no love for the peoples of the mainland Westeros, whom they consider green and weak. The faith of the Seven and the Old Gods find small favor with the Ironborn, as their allegiance is given to their native drowned god. Because of the scarcity of the faith, there are few knights in the islands. Known knights include Ser Harris Harlaw and Ser Allydale Wynch. Some Ironmen believe in returning to the old way of reaving and paying the iron price. Economy. The islands are sparse and rocky with a thin, stony soil that makes it hard for the small folk to farm, often having to do without the animals that might make their job easier, such as oxen or horses. While their mines do not produce the precious metals of the Westerlands, iron is abundant on the isles. Lead and tin can also be obtained. Most Ironborn feel the dangerous and backbreaking labor required to mine these metals is work suitable only for thralls. With so little wealth on the islands themselves, it is not difficult to understand why the Ironborn of old turned to raiding. Archmaester Harrig suggests that need for wood was what first drove the Ironborn to raid the mainland. Military strength. According to a semi-canon source from 2005, the Iron Isles can raise approximately 20,000 men and 500 longships. The Iron Fleet alone consists of 100 ships, which are 3 times larger than the standard longship. A longship such as Sea Bitch has 50 oars, while Great Kraken and Iron Victory are larger. George R. R. Martin has indicated that the major lords of the Ironborn can each float around 100 ships. The only fleets comparable to those of the Iron Islands are the Royal Fleet in the Crownlands and the Redwyne Fleet at the Arbor. History. Kingsmoot era. Maesters believe the Iron Islands were settled by the first men many thousands of years ago. Legends claim that the first men discovered what would be called the Seastone Chair upon the shores of Old Wyke. There is no evidence the islands were inhabited by children of the forest or giants. Weirwood trees do not grow in their poor soils, so the old gods did not have significant followers there. Instead, the humans who came to inhabit the islands worship their own local religion of the drowned god. Differing from maesters, the priests of the Isles claim the Ironmen are not first men in origin but were created in the image of the drowned god, and they therefore may have a connection with Merlings. Some also suspect that the Isles were originally inhabited by the Deep Ones, and that they are the ones who left the Seastone Chair behind. Most Ironborn, however, believe that their ancestors were an offshoot of the first men who simply crossed to the Isles on boats, where their culture developed differently from their mainland cousins. The ancient first men kept thralls, hinting that the Ironborn were also first men who retained the practice in their isolation. According to legend, the islands were ruled by the Grey King during the Age of Heroes. For much of their history, each island was its own kingdom and had its own kings, a rock king who ruled the land and a salt king who commanded at sea. Chosen by King Smoot, these petty kings constantly fought with each other, and they raided the first men of mainland Westeros for timber, crops, and thralls. The islands were first unified when a powerful priest of the drowned god, Galen Whitestaff, decreed it was sinful for ironborn to make war upon other ironborn. The other priests preached his word throughout the isles, until the various kings and longship captains convened on Old Wyke at Naga's Bones for the first Kingsmoot to select one High King of the Iron Islands to rule over all. Galen decreed the title was not hereditary, but upon the death of each High King a new Kingsmoot would be convened to elect another. The new High Kings were also called Driftwood Kings, because of their crowns of driftwood. The Kingsmoot ended the petty wars between each of the isles, and with their new unified strength, the High Kings began to conquer other lands instead of just raiding them. Under the rule of King Cord the Cruel, the Ironborn brought much of the western coast of Westeros under the rule of the Iron Island, including lands as far as Bear Island, the Arbor, and Old Town. They were gradually lost by his successors, however, as mainland houses such as the Hightowers, Gardeners, and Lannisters increased in strength. The High Kings came from numerous houses, with most coming from houses Greyjoy, Goodbrother, and especially Grey Iron. The Grey Iron Dynasty. Upon the death of High King Aegon III Grey Iron, his younger sons convened a Kingsmoot which chose Urathon for Goodbrother, although Aegon's elder son, Torgon Grey Iron, was away raiding the Reach. Supported by priests unhappy with Urathon's tyranny, Torgon declared the Kingsmoot invalid when he returned to the Iron Islands, and the so-called Bad Brother was overthrown. Although Torgon the latecomer was wise, the Ironborn were still in decline and the Cape of Eagles was lost to the Malisters of Seaguard. Torgon had his son rule alongside him for several years, and Aegon for Grey Iron thus also became High King without being chosen in a Kingsmoot. The dying wish of Aegon IV was that the High Kingship pass to his great-nephew Euron Grey Iron, Salt King of Orkmont. When the priests insisted that a Kingsmoot be held at Old Wyke, Euron had his men slaughter those who attended, including 13 other kings and half 100 priests. Euron Redhand established the hereditary rule of House Grey Iron over the Iron Islands. Instead of being called High Kings, they titled themselves King of the Iron Islands and wore iron crowns. Abolishing the system of Rock and Salt Kings, the Grey Iron Kings reduced other Ironborn kings to lords and extinguished families who refused to submit. While the Driftwood Kings were elected by consent of the lords and captains, the Iron Kings led to infighting among the Ironborn, which the priests were unable to stop. The Grey Irons faced half a dozen major rebellions, numerous smaller insurrections and insubordinations, and at least 2 major thrall uprisings. The stronger and larger kingdoms of the Greenlands took advantage of the Ironborn's disunity to take back conquests on mainland Westeros. For instance, Garth VII Gardener, King of the Reach, drove the Ironmen from the Shield Islands and fortified them to prevent Ironborn raids up the Mander. Unlike the first men, the Undulls built strong ships capable of fighting Ironborn longships. During the coming of the Undulls, wooden stockades of the first men were replaced with stone castles throughout the Reach, the Riverlands, and the Westerlands, new defenses against the lightning raids of the Ironborn. All of their possessions lost, the Grey Irons barely held on to power, and the Isles increasingly divided into civil wars. After 1,000 years of hereditary rule, the Grey Irons fell to a coalition of Ironborn lords and Undull adventurers, who often intermarried with the natives of the Iron Islands. The Horde Dynasty. The Grey Irons were replaced as hereditary kings of the Iron Islands by House Hoare, who intermarried with the Undulls when they came to the Isles. The priests of the drowned god considered the Hoares ungodly and false kings, which Archmaester Haek agreed with. Archmaester Hareg, however, believed the Hoares were disliked for tolerating the faith of the Seven, discouraging reaving, and promoting trade. The priests eventually rebelled against King Harmond the Handsome, led by a priest remembered as the Shrike. They overthrew Harmond within a fortnight and mutilated his mother, Dowager Queen Lelia Lannister, which led to a long war with the Westerlands, which left the Iron Islands impoverished and ill-prepared for the famine winter. It took centuries for the islands to recover, during which Iron Men began to trade with coastal Westeros and the Free Cities. Only a shadow of what they once were, the Ironborn no longer held territories on the fortified mainland and instead reigned in distant places, such as the Basilisk Isles, Stepstones, and disputed lands. A few generations before the Wars of Conquest, the peaceful King Corwin the Cunning built a strong fleet to deter attack. His ambitious son, King Harwin Hardhand, then conquered the Trident on the mainland from the Storm King Erect Durrandon. Harwin's grandson, King Harren the Black, ordered the construction of Harrenhal, an enormous castle on the northern shore of the God's Eye in central Westeros. The building of Harrenhal over 40 years beggared both the Iron Islands and the conquered Riverlands. The Hoare line, now kings of the Isles and the Rivers, ended with the deaths of Harren and his sons during Aegon's conquest. Inspired by Aegon Targaryen, Lord Edmund Tully led the River Lords in rebellion against the Hoares at Harrenhal. Harren refused to yield to Aegon and the castle was too strong to storm, so Aegon flew his dragon, Balerion, over the walls and roasted Harren and his sons in their tower. Most of Harren's supporters were killed in the burning of Harrenhal or by river lords as they retreated back to Ironman's Bay, and Aegon granted rule over the riverlands to House Tully. In 2 AC, Aegon led an invasion of the Iron Islands to defeat the various pretenders to Harren's throne, including Cornwalmark and Lodos. Aegon then allowed the defeated Ironborn to choose Lord Vicon Greyjoy of Pike to rule as the new Lord of the Iron Islands, a vassal of House Targaryen who now ruled the Seven Kingdoms from the Iron Throne. The Greyjoys under the Iron Throne. Vicon Greyjoy, Lord of the Iron Islands, was a cautious ruler who did not provoke House Targaryen and its dragons. Vicon allowed the Faith of the Seven to return to the Iron Islands. His son, Lord Goran Greyjoy, suppressed a conspiracy to crown Cornwalmark and a revolt by a priest calling himself Lodos, and in return King Aenys Targaryen allowed Goran to expel the Faith from the archipelago for another century. After Goran, the weakened Iron Islands remained aloof from mainland politics for the next 100 years. Lord Dalton Greyjoy, the Red Kraken, raided the western shores during the Dance of the Dragons, capturing land from the Westerlands. He was murdered at Faircastle in 133 AC by a Salt wife, Tess, and a struggle for power broke out between his two infant Salt sons, Torrin and Roderick, his sisters and good brothers, his cousins, and the pretender Sam Salt. In 134 AC, Lady Johanna Lannister allied with Ser Leo Costane to invade the islands in reprisal and conquer them for her son, Lord Lorien Lannister, though Lord Torrin remained on the Seastone chair by the war's end. During the reign of King Aerys I Targaryen, Lord Dagon Greyjoy, the last Reaver, led the Ironborn in again raiding the western coast of Westeros. The Iron Islands supported the Iron Throne during the War of the Ninepenny Kings, with Lord Quellon Greyjoy leading 100 longships to fight in the Stepstones. Quellon outlawed thraldom and wanted to integrate the Iron Islands into the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, and he pursued neutrality during Robert's Rebellion. Encouraged by his sons, however, Quellon joined the rebels after Prince Rhaegar Targaryen's death at the Battle of the Trident. Quellon made a token display of support for House Baratheon against the Targaryens, but the Lord of the Iron Islands was killed in battle at the Mander. Quellon was succeeded by his eldest surviving son, Lord Balon Greyjoy, who rejected his father's works and wanted to return to the old way of paying the iron price. Balon spent 5 years building the Iron Fleet, believing that the usurper Robert I Baratheon's reign was weak. In 289 AC, Balon declared himself king of the Iron Islands in a bid for independence from the Iron Throne. Greyjoy's rebellion had some early victories, destroying the Lannister fleet at anchor and raiding the western coasts, but Balon had misjudged Robert's position. The mainland rallied their support for Robert, and the Iron Islands were invaded by the king, his brother Lord Stannis, Lord Eddard Stark, Lord Tywin Lannister, and Ser Barris Tan Selmy. Balon lost his two eldest sons in the war, and though Robert pardoned the would-be king in return for bending the knee, Balon's surviving son, Theon, was sent to Winterfell to be the ward and hostage of Lord Stark.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.